Welcome, entrepreneurs. My name is Precious Mvulane. I will be covering setting up finance function for today. And I hope you will leave us the comments for your questions on what we have covered. And if there's anything else that you want us to cover, just let me know. Setting up finance function, Module 8 of Finance Success Program. This function is very important in every business. Every business needs finance function. What is finance function and why does it matter so much? When do you set up your finance function? Where to find the resources and who do you need to be in your team? Understanding the difference between finance and accounting, especially the key accounting roles. The best approach in records keeping. This is what we're going to cover when we do the setting up of finance function. Okay, entrepreneurs, I hope that provided you with some sort of introduction for what we're going to cover today. I am going to cover the detail, and the presentation will also be linked below. And I'm basically really recording this because the first one I did when I started listening to it, oh Lord, I was like, no, it doesn't have what I need. It's not enough. It's I'm still learning, so forgive me. And if there's anything that I've left out, just let me know. Or if you're still struggling in how you're going to set up your finance, I'm not going to try to provide every building block. I'm going to get you the few steps or the structure or framework on how to set the function, but you're going to need to put some meat into it. I hope you enjoyed. I'm so loving these cuties on the screen. Okay, my name is Precious, as I have introduced myself earlier. I basically teach for a living. I've been a student of business for a very long time. So I am quite passionate about entrepreneurship, but also just building up governance structures that are going to help organizations to be more sustainable. So what we're going to learn today, we're focusing on the business function and also the finance activities, including the KPIs. How did that link back to why you're even setting up the function, understanding how you're going to manage the information, but also what are the key decisions that you need and within finance, which then determine why you need the finance, but also identify the difference between accounting and finance, including understanding management accounting and financial accounting. There's also a video I'm going to include on the top here where I have covered this in more detail, and then completing also of the routine task within finance. And the last one will also look at the records keeping. Now, in understanding the finance, we really have to put an effort in understanding a bigger picture, because finance is definitely not accounting and accounting is not finance. However, what finance is basically the science that describes the management and the creation or the study of money. And it has different instruments that are used. We have banking, credit, investments, asset, liabilities. Those are the sum of the instruments that are within the environment, but the tools that actually get used. But in understanding the framework, we have personal finance, we have corporate finance, which is business, which is what I'm covering here. And we also have public finance. As much as we have these distinct categories, they basically are talking to the same thing. It's about maximizing the return on investment, maximizing the value that the shareholder or the users, in the case of public sector, it will be taxpayers. And in the case of corporate business, it will be shareholders and investors. And in personal finance, it will be the person who's actually have an interest in building up their financial wealth. So, and understanding this world of finance then gets into in corporate finance, what are the things that you're going to focus on? You're basically going to focus on 3 decisions: investing, dividends, and also financing. And again, this is about maximizing the shareholders' wealth. When the decisions are made within corporate finance, they then lead to how we're going to manage this on day-to-day. That is financial management, about efficiency and effectiveness of finance operations, which is talking basically to the finance function, which is basically in management. It's about planning, it's about execution, monitoring, and also about reporting. We'll cover that also in more detail. Then when we are running those day-to-day activities, we need to actually record this information. How we will record this information, we use a bookkeeping system, and then the accountants will actually then summarize that those transactions according to a specific framework based on the needs of the users. So that is the world of finance. If you want to learn more and read more about that in detail, get the Essential Finance Handbook. I will include the link below. So where do we start when we're talking about finance function? We start by setting up the financial goals. We are setting up on where do we want to go with it? Where do we want this to actually be our destination? And then it's almost like the goals, once they are set, we have to still work out how are we going to reach that goal? What is our strategy in reaching that goal? So the questions that will generally be asked there: what type of investment do we need cash for? And what is the funding model of that investment? Is it a short-term or long-term? If it's a short-term, it's working capital and how we're going to manage the cash flow. And then also we're going to be talking about the cost of capital, the return on the venture, but also, does it make sense? Is it financially viable? So the goal, then the strategy should also be linked to the key performance indicators. But just remember, keep in mind that in finance, we only deal with 4 things: income, expenditure, asset, and debt. That's it. So our aim is to make sure that the income and asset is always kept higher, and anything below that, which is expenditure and debt, that is kept lower. That is guaranteed to make sure that you are profitable, but also the net asset value improves. So when we're looking at the KPIs, we really have to look at profitability, cash flow measures, which really focus on liquidity and solvency, but also the capital market ratios. And these are the indicators that will be used within the financial strategy and also to measure the performance of the organization. Now, what drives these decisions is really about what do we need, how do we actually pay for it, where do we pay, when do we pay for it, and when we are generating revenue, how does that talk to our expenditures? Because all these discussions or decisions have to really drive the bottom line, which is profit. Therefore, understanding a return on investment is really the key. So what is finance function? Finance function is basically taking these decisions I was talking about here, these decisions on income, how we're going to increase the income, how we're going to increase asset, how we're going to reduce the expenditure, how we're going to reduce the debt, all these decisions, and with the aim of making sure we maximize the return on investment in any, whether it's a public sector or personal finance or including corporate finance. Now, and when you are looking at finance function, it's really about supporting business objectives. It's about making sure that we're costing and pricing things right. It's about making sure that there is a budget that guide management in procuring the things that the business needs, but also there's a clear indication on how decision making needs to be made and what information is required to make those decisions. And number two, within the finance function is really about providing the information and consolidating and processing the information from the time the entries are starting all the way when you are actually managing, which include asset management. And in there could be a whole list, including accounts receivables, but also looking on the debt management. Looking at the funding, which is another component of the finance function, is about treasury, providing the funding. And this can be short-term, long-term, but it's also about just managing the financial risk, really making sure that the business has sufficient funds to be able to continue operating. So this can be in categories of terms, in terms of timelines. And the role of finance is to make sure that there's a consistent in providing the resources required by business, but also making sure we're able to pay where there's debt relating to this. So treasury is really a bigger role than just about managing working capital. It's really about also making sure that we are preparing the business consistently to be ready to raise the funds that are required. And the last part, my favorite part, is reporting, financial reporting, where we're talking about financial statements, tax, regulatory information. And again, I think I have the video again that talks about financial statements. I have included it here. I will also include it below. So in concluding, in understanding the reality gist of a finance function is really about making decisions about where to take money, and at what cost, and also how do we allocate those resources across the business so that we can get our return on investment. Now, the areas really will range from of the actual activities about financial planning, where you're gonna need to have some forecasting, you're gonna need to look at the inflow cash and the outflow cash, raising of capital, is this gonna be grants or is it gonna be debt financing, is it gonna be equity financing, allocating those funds, and sometimes where you are raising funds might detect where you're going to allocate them, but also effective use, which then will lead to a strong financial control, which is about budgeting and increase of risk management also. So in finance function, in corporate finance, as I said earlier, we're dealing with 3 decisions: investment and financial financing decision. And in that also is really about how we evaluate those investments and how do we make sure that when we are raising and managing or building up our financing projections, it does match with the investment so that we can make sure that the return of investment is maximized. But it's also about really understanding that at the end of the day, we are about what would be the return, what would be the profit, what would be the earnings that come from all these efforts. And that is very key. So whatever that we're doing in business has to have a return on investment. Now, let's talk about the difference between accounting and finance. I have a video where I have done, I think it was a video on accounting for entrepreneurs, but I've also done a video on management accounts where I did also try by all means to explain the differences between accounting and finance so that you really kind of understand what is the difference. Finance is bigger than just accounting, whereas accounting is more about the system of reporting and recording, whereas finance is really about how we get the money and how we use the money with an aim of maximizing the return, whereas the real main objective of accounting is making sure that the information that the business uses in making the decisions is actually accurate and is also got different aspects within it in terms of taxes compliant, but also the information that is being provided to different users is credible. So it's really about that. That's the bottom line when it comes to the difference between accounting and finance. And there is also really about understanding that in accounting, we will need different proficiencies as compared in finance. In accounting, you will need to have auditing, tax, business law, management accounting, cost accounting, even project accounting. And all of these really are the proficiencies that you need in the business. When you are starting up, you might need to outsource. Just remember, management accounting, cost accounting, you don't need them every year. You will need them at least once in a lifetime of your business, especially management accounting, and then cost accounting, you will need in the once in a lifetime of a product. And then just keep in mind that at the end of the day, finance is a bigger issue. It's about the portfolio, it's about derivatives, capital markets. It's really a leveraging your business. Is really about looking at the bigger picture. So if you're not sure, just go back to this, which I was the world of finance. It's gonna actually assist you in really figuring out, okay, when I'm dealing with finance, within finance, because really when you're looking at the bigger world of finance, in the first layer, we're talking about fiscal policies, we're talking about the treasury regulations, we're talking about the markets, we're really talking about how the money moves within the economy and where does it move to and where the investment, either fiscal or it's private investments. Okay. When we're now talking about finance function as a management tool, really, as I said, tax is financial accounting, and financial accounting is really about frameworks. So while we do costing and inventory, but the real function that does the costing is the one that focuses on performance and evaluation and analysis, and having the right accountant who's going to analyze for you the account and the product on making sure that every product is profitable is really about adding bigger value than just being about recording the past. So as a business, you're really going to need to set up the systems and processes within the accounting function that are going to allow you to have that type of information so that you can make an informed decision. Keep in mind that in finance, we don't just look at historical information, we also look at the future. So in more detail, accountants are really about providing the financial information that was going to enable the management to make decisions and answer questions that are being asked, but also keep in mind that as the owners of the business, you should be worried and asking yourself, how much is the value of the business? Is it increasing or decreasing? And what can we do to improve? But also keep in mind that the directors, which are managers, should be saying, okay, if we're expanding, what does that mean? What are the cost implications? Are we optimizing our capital, the organizational capital in terms of capacity and capabilities? Are we maximizing our resources? Are we maximizing our pricing based on our positioning? So it's really about the management accountant providing the information to the users so that they can actually answer certain questions and then decide on what strategies and ideas they can implement to improve. Whereas when you're looking at the financial accounting, is really supplying both internal and external in answering several questions around the creditors and also the suppliers, including investors and employees, managers and government institutions. Whereas in management accounting is really internal, it's managers and owners. So financial accountant, like chartered accountant like myself, we really are more looking at making sure that the financial statements, according to required standard, they're meeting the regulatory requirements. They're assisting in making sure that the employees can actually kind of assess the liquidity of the business. The creditors can be able to also assess whether the business is actually even a going concern, so that they expand or reduce the credit, but also the investors to assess whether they should be investing more in this business or taking away their investments. So why is finance function so important? It's really, as I said earlier, about making sure that we are charging right. We are setting the measurable targets, but also it's about how we're utilizing the resources. But in more detail, when it comes to finance, we have to prioritize to build up a strong governance that is going to enable us as managers to really control the activities of the business. So therefore, it's about facilitating the improvement. So I generally say the financial information provides me with the result. It's the result of how we have been performing. So by having the right financial results allows us to be able to pinpoint the areas for improvement in a business, and also then design appropriate financial controls, and also build up statutory requirements, as I said, in terms of compliance, but also promote management to understand the financial risk to the business, because at the end of the day, business is a business, and successful, whether that business is successful or not, is really about the financial results it produces. So in also building up those priorities in terms of why finance is so important, it somehow drives forward the business. It allows the business to meet its challenges. It strengthens also the decision making throughout the business. It actually provides information that managers and directors should be making as they're running the business, so that they can increase the value in that business. The last few comments that I just want to make is that when the finance function is set right, it assists with efficiency of managing the business, because it does reduce the cost. It does also make sure that the investment that has been put through into the business is realized. It also allows you to be able to see which functions, how that function is performing. So it finance function integrates all the business functions. But lastly, it assists you to be able to manage the business processes, including the reporting, whether it's a statutory reporting or management reporting. Now, where do you find the resources to support yourself? Building up your team, banks. Every business has a bank account, but most of you have never even met your bank manager. So some of the banks also provide accounting softwares for free use. Have a look also, there's quite a lot of free accounting softwares, including open source. Incubators also provide different support in helping, including coaching sessions and so on. Consulting firm like ourselves in JD, we provide several training in different aspects when it comes to finance. Training companies can assist you in providing interns and free training. Facet, which is the finance SETA, can also provide with interns in finance. And also SARS, the receiver of revenue, provides several trainings, free trainings that can actually support. CEDA also can provide with some support that is government institution that assists small businesses. So there is support out there. Start knocking the doors and start asking the questions, but also understand that building your finance team is really about being clear. What is the goal? What's the strategy? The strategy basically tells you who do you need to be on your team. The KPIs tell you what systems and what KPIs, how you're going to set up your charts of accounts. So really here I've provided a generic of where you can find possible free or cheaper resources, but you're going to need to go back to your strategy. Because if your strategy says you're going to need to raise working capital, you're going to need to have asset financing. Surely, therefore, if it's a working capital, you're going to need to ask yourself, okay, who provide a short-term financing? What do they need? Do they need me to have a cash flow projections? Do they need me to have a business plan? And you then get to those. There is quite a lot of apps, including that cover doing of business plans and so on, that can actually also assist you in building up the tools. But all I am saying is that the team is defined by the goals and the strategy that you have set and how you actually are planning on achieving that goal. Understand that within finance, there is different roles, and also there is different aspects of it, which will need different people with different skills. And you also have to keep in mind that the financial planning of this should always be the first thing that you work on. So as you're building up your team, as you are working out on the detail, just remember the financial plan provides you with some sort of a blueprint on how you intend to be running and building up your business. This is what also will help you in budgetary controls within your business. I know some entrepreneurs actually buy without any budget, and they procure without any process. They don't do 3 codes. They don't even check the values. They don't check even the terms and conditions. So this is the area where you can really improve and build up systems as you are running your finance function. So the last one, which I have found to be the most challenging, has been, setting up a finance function will take up some time, but I think the real step one, once you have set up all the framework that I have just articulated, is getting to the nitty-gritties of managing your record keeping. I usually share this experience with entrepreneurs that when I was running my business as an accounting firm, the entrepreneurs would call me to say, come and audit. There would be nothing to audit. Come and do accounting. And I'm like, but where are your records? How do you manage your records? Entrepreneurs will generally struggle with this one. So because now when you are recording and your records are not intact, it also means garbage in, garbage out. So just my approach or my advice to you, have your own accounting system where you are in full control. Get a bookkeeper or an accountant to reconcile on a monthly basis. File the documents in the cloud. Back up the records on a weekly basis, almost like you take a picture from the phone and then you load it on the cloud as you are spending the money. Get an accounting system that suits your industry, that suits your processes and systems. The second last thing that you really have to set up daily checklist of the things that needs to be done within the task and finance, and set up monthly tasks, set up semi-annual, and also set up the annual checklist that of the tasks that needs to be set and done in your finance function. And make sure you are very clear what needs to be done in-house, what needs to be done externally, outsourced, and when it's outsourced, also have a way of linking that up with the service level agreement with whoever is your service provider. Please keep in mind on step number 3 of the Essential Finance Handbook, I have already included the compliance checklist, which you can use, and it's already assigned according to this periodic manner. I also have on systems and procedures, which is step 5 and step 6. You can actually use those checklists and also the controls that needs to be in place to guide on what are the things that you want to do monthly, weekly, you want to do daily, you want to do annually, you want to do every 6 months, so that you are clear on what needs to be done and when. I will link up the link on the Essential Finance Handbook for you to get it. It's 300 Rand, so that's small money. The work is already done. All you will need to do is just cut and paste. Okay, so that's the book. And I will include the link for you as we have concluded. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy this, and please leave me questions. Goodbye.